More features are coming to your Xbox, more games are going to PlayStation, and Phil basically confirms a handheld. A busy week in the world of Xbox as the big game showcase was Sunday, but today Xbox are dropping new features for your console, and a recent Phil Spencer interview really just again shines that light. The games are going more places, including a handheld that sounds like Xbox will be building, at least in some capacity. So let's just dive into the details as we like to do. Now, first up here are the June, or I should say is the June update coming to your Xbox. Now, I'm not going to read every single feature, just sort of the highlights here. First off, you can now easily connect your Xbox to your wireless networks, and it will now remember up to 10 networks. Why would you ever need a stationary console to remember 10 networks? You probably don't. However, if you have a handheld running the Xbox OS, the hypervisor, you definitely would. And so there you go. That is sort of, affirming information we had already known, but just one more thing in there. You'll soon be able to manage these subscriptions directly from your console, and I mean by soon as you download that update, which this seems to make sense considering how much Microsoft is pushing the Game Pass subscription, being able to do it directly from the plastic box that sits underneath your TV. Hey, that makes complete sense at the end of the day. The Xbox wireless, or your Xbox controller, is also getting an update. Now, this is something that directly impacts me, which is the Xbox Elite wireless controller Series 2 will now feature fewer disconnects, I should say, which I definitely did experience that, so that is a good thing. The PC gaming app also getting some love. This has been rolling out for a little bit, I believe, but it's the refresh navigation experience. It is quite a bit better, so it's good to see that that is officially rolling out to everybody. And on the Xbox Cloud Gaming side, the one notable feature here is mouse and keyboard for cloud gaming is now available for all players, which again is another big update just because a lot of people like the mouse and keyboard. And if you're not a controller warrior, you know what? You can now don your favorite high DPI mouse to get your gaming on. So those are just the quick updates here for the Xbox. It's the Xbox platform, I should say, because it's more than just the console. But the more interesting stuff this week has been, aside from the massive amount of games and everything else announced, are the comments from an interview with IGN from Phil Spencer himself. And this is really digging into the thing that we all know is true, is that, hey, games are going to be going to more places. And that is just really just kind of it. He says, our commitment to Xbox customers is you're going to get the opportunity to buy or subscribe to the game, and we're going to support it on other screens. Said Spencer, you're going to see more of our games on more platforms, and we're just going to see it as a benefit to the franchise, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, it's unfortunately for Xbox, the corner they've backed themselves into is twofold here because of this. One, now every time an Xbox game gets announced, like Indiana Jones, a Halo, or literally whatever Xbox first-party studio, it's going to be, hey, is this coming to PlayStation 2? That is going to be a question that is fair and valid because Microsoft has already taken some titles, and by Phil Spencer's own acknowledgement here, they're going to be taking more titles. Now, the other corner that they've backed themselves into is that, hey, they've spent a ton of money buying up all these studios, and they got to start generating some serious returns. And the easiest way to do that is to put your game on more platforms. Now, this is going to perturb Xbox loyalists, like I should say myself, because I've definitely just been buying every single Xbox console that's ever really come out. And at the end of the day, I got to tell you, it doesn't really bother me all that much. I don't get caught up in this, oh, you can't play this on PlayStation. Yeah, it potentially could hurt Xbox console sales. That is a very real thing. It's like, well, like let's use Gears of War E-Day as an example announced this weekend. Let's pretend, I'm not saying that it's going to PlayStation. It's like, well, why would I buy an Xbox if I can play some exclusive games like Spider-Man or whatever your title is over on PlayStation and get Gears of War? But Gears of War might be a bad example. I guess I should really say that. But maybe like Doom or something else. Right, that really could materially impact Xbox at the end of the day. However, they're taking it from the vantage point of like, look, we got to make this business sustainable. And to make business sustainable, we got to sell a lot of games. We got to sell more games. And the reality is, let's say that they did lock these things to an exclusive paywall or an exclusive console. they would not make as much money. Like there's no way that they could. It's not, PlayStation customers are not just going to go buy an Xbox for a title. I think that's probably the lesson that we're learning here, is that customers at this point in the console life cycle, and I mean because a previous statement by Phil Spencer said the average age of a console buyer increases 1 every year, basically meaning that like a new generation isn't growing up with a console, are pretty much locked into their platform. And very few people, let's be real here, don't pick a console based on what games are available. They pick the console where their friends are. And like, if your friends are already on PlayStation, you're going to buy a PlayStation next time around. That's just the way that it is. All my friends are on Xbox. I'm going to buy an Xbox the next time around because that's where my friends are. And the games that we play, namely Call of Duty and other Xbox titles, are on Xbox. And so like the likelihood of me buying a PlayStation is actually pretty low unless I can convince like 5-6 other people to do it as well. And so maybe that's what they're just coming to the realization. It's like, look, we got to do this because we're not gonna be able to move 10 million people from PlayStation over to Xbox. It's just not gonna happen. So there's that too. And then specifically on that, speaking of Doom, Phil Spencer came out and just said, hey, Doom is definitely, like, if you think about it, Doom could have been an Xbox exclusive, but Doom is definitely one of those titles that has a history on so many platforms, according to Spencer. It's a franchise that I think everyone deserves to play. And when I was in a meeting with Marty a couple years ago, I asked Marty what he wanted to do. He said he wanted to sell it on all platforms. Simple as that. So Doom, the Dark Ages, which looks pretty good. That shotgun looks pretty epic. I mean, this is like a pure run and gun, like classic Doom experience, which I most likely will definitely be playing, is coming to PlayStation as well. Does that keep me up at night as like somebody who buys it? No, absolutely does not. It really, really does not. And then Phil Spencer went on to say this specifically about a handheld. He said, I think we should have a handheld too. I mean, if the lead of Xbox is saying, I think we should have a handheld, they're doing a handheld in some capacity, whether it's just the OS and letting other vendors like Asus and Acer and all those guys, and gals, I should say, build the hardware. We don't know yet, but we will find out. But speaking of, like, if they have a handheld, which I think, again, we should say when they have a handheld, you can kind of jump back into this. So this is what was announced on Sunday as well during that, is right, there's new SKUs of the Xbox console, right? There's the all digital edition Series X, which is $450 dues, and then there's the 2 terabyte Xbox Series X with a disk drive for the eye-watering $599. I think we have just witnessed the end of the disk drive, at least on Xbox, right? I don't know who wants to pay $600 now to get a disk drive for their console. I think this is like Microsoft appeasing those, like saying, look, technically, yes, it's still possible. You can do this. But at this pricing category, it's like, yeah, it's like it's available, but nobody's buying it at the end of the day. People are going to pick up the digital versions. That's just the way that it is. That has been the trend in the industry. Sony is also doing this. It also, like, if they build a handheld console, that thing is going to be all digital as well. And so I think that's a pretty safe assumption. They're not going to come up with some new card format or some physical media format for a handheld console at this point in time. Like, that would seem really, really backwards given everything that Microsoft has really talked about. And all digital is the future, and Game Pass, Microsoft hopes, is the future as well. So there you go. There's a little nutshell of everything going on. Make sure to keep it subscribed here, because the BS on this channel is me.